These brutal endings revealed the final truth of the Golden Age of Piracy. Terror eventually turned against the men who built their legends upon it. Blackbeard fell beneath gunfire and steel. Kidd survived one broken rope only to face another. Roberts vanished beneath the Atlantic. Rackham died before the harbor he once haunted, and Vane ended beneath the gallows after years of defiance. Their ships, cannon, treasure, and black flags could delay capture, but none could escape forever. In the end, the sea made them feared, while execution transformed their bodies into warnings for every sailor who followed.
Enjoy the video, and don't forget to subscribe.
Trace your finger along the map from the Caribbean toward the eastern coast of North America and picture the year 1718, when the smell of rotting oak, boiling pine tar, damp hemp rigging, human sweat, stale bilge water, and burned black powder drifted above an Atlantic where piracy could end with extraordinary violence. Number 5 among the most brutal pirate deaths ever recorded begins with Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard, whose final battle erupted at Ocracoke Inlet on November 22, 1718. His sloop adventure maneuvered through shallow water while Lieutenant Robert Maynard approached with 2 armed vessels carrying sailors ordered to capture or kill him. Blackbeard's hull depended upon curved white oak futtocks beneath pronounced tumblehome, seams packed with twisted oakum and sealed with heated pitch after repeated careening. When cannon opened fire, coarse black powder, traditionally composed near 75% saltpeter, 15% charcoal, and 10% sulfur, ignited within milliseconds, producing expanding gases that hurled iron shot through oak planking. Fibers compressed, fractured, and exploded inward as razor-edged splinters swept the deck. Maynard concealed armed men below before closing alongside. Blackbeard boarded expecting a crippled enemy, only for sailors to surge upward into close combat. Pistols discharged at arm's length, cutlasses struck against steel and bone, and smoke accumulated between the vessels. Contemporary accounts claimed Blackbeard received approximately 5 gunshot wounds and around 20 cuts before collapsing. His death was not the final humiliation. His head was severed and suspended from Maynard's bowsprit as unmistakable proof that one of the Atlantic's most feared pirate captains had been destroyed. Number 4 takes us backward to May 23, 1701, and London's execution dock, where Captain William Kidd discovered that a pirate's death could become a carefully engineered public spectacle. Kidd had once commanded the approximately 287-ton adventure galley under letters of marque authorizing attacks against designated enemies and pirates. Yet the seizure of the Quedagh merchant helped transform him from privateer into condemned criminal. After imprisonment and trial, he was transported toward the Thames shoreline as crowds gathered to witness the sentence. Execution Dock deliberately stood near the tidal boundary, symbolically placing maritime criminals beneath Admiralty jurisdiction. The gallows consisted of heavy timber uprights joined by a crossbeam capable of carrying a man's violently shifting weight, while hemp rope twisted from multiple yarns tightened under sudden loading. Kidd climbed beneath the beam with his hands restrained. The noose was positioned around his neck, the signal was given, and his support disappeared. Then something extraordinary happened. The rope broke. Instead of dying immediately, Kidd crashed downward and survived the first attempt. Under contemporary execution practice, the failure did not cancel his sentence. He was recovered, brought again beneath the gallows, and another rope was prepared. The second drop held. With no standardized long drop calculation designed to fracture the cervical vertebrae instantly, hanging commonly killed through constriction of the carotid arteries, compression of the airway, or prolonged strangulation. Kidd's body remained suspended after death, but punishment continued beyond the gallows. His corpse was coated in tar to slow decomposition, enclosed inside an iron gibbet, and displayed beside the Thames, where tides, salt air, rain, and birds slowly reduced the body, while passing sailors were forced to look upon the remains of the captain who had once crossed oceans hunting the very pirates he was ultimately condemned to resemble. Number 3 belongs to Bartholomew Roberts, the the Welsh captain remembered as Black Bart, whose death on February 10, 1722, demonstrated how a single projectile could collapse an entire pirate command structure. Off Cape Lopez on the West African coast, Roberts commanded the heavily armed Royal Fortune, while HMS Swallow, a Royal Navy warship under Captain Challoner Ogle, maneuvered into battle. Roberts had captured hundreds of vessels during his career and governed his crew through detailed articles of agreement, but neither reputation nor discipline could protect him from naval gunnery. Royal Fortune's hull was constructed around massive oak framing, its futtocks supporting external planking whose seams required oakum, pitch, and repeated careening to remain watertight. As Swallow approached, cannon crews worked beside guns secured by thick breaching ropes. Black powder containing roughly 75% saltpeter, 15% charcoal, and 10% sulfur was rammed behind iron ammunition. When ignition reached the charge, rapidly expanding gases drove projectiles from the muzzle while recoil forced several thousand pounds of cannon backward against its restraints. During the exchange, Roberts stood conspicuously dressed on deck, reportedly wearing a crimson waistcoat and an elaborate hat. Swallow released a devastating broadside. Grape shot transformed a cannon into an enormous close-range shotgun, scattering multiple iron balls across exposed men, rigging, and timber. Roberts was struck in the throat and collapsed against a gun. His crew immediately honored his earlier instructions rather than surrendering his corpse. Still dressed for battle, Roberts was wrapped in his ship's colors, weighted, and thrown overboard. His body disappeared beneath the Atlantic before British sailors could seize it, while the psychological authority holding Royal Fortune together disappeared almost as quickly. Number 2 carries us to Port Royal, Jamaica, on November 18, 1720, where Calico Jack Rackham reached the gallows after a career that ended not with a legendary broadside, but with capture, trial, and public execution. Rackham had commanded a small pirate sloop designed for speed, its shallow draft allowing movement through Caribbean waters inaccessible to heavier warships. Beneath the deck, curved oak futtocks supported planking fastened with hand-forged iron spikes, while standing rigging passed through deadies and chain plates engineered to absorb the immense tension imposed by mast and canvas. His crew operated under articles of agreement, and among those sailing with him were Anne Bonny and Mary Red. In October 1720, Captain Jonathan Barnett, acting under authority against pirates, encountered Rackham's vessel near Jamaica. After resistance collapsed, Rackham and his surviving crew were captured and carried to Spanish Town for trial. The proceedings moved quickly. Rackham was convicted of piracy and sentenced to death by hanging. The standard punishment intended not merely to kill offenders, but to demonstrate imperial control over maritime trade. On November 18th, he was taken to Gallows Point at Port Royal. Unlike later 19th century executions calculated around measured drops, early 18th century hanging frequently depended upon strangulation rather than instantaneous cervical fracture. A hemp noose tightened under body weight, compressing vessels, supplying blood to the brain while simultaneously restricting the airway. Consciousness might disappear rapidly under favorable circumstances, yet death could require several agonizing minutes. Rackham's body was afterward reportedly placed in a gibbet on a small island near the harbor, remembered as Rackham's Cay, where iron restraints exposed his remains to tropical heat, salt spray, insects, and decomposition. Every vessel entering Port Royal could understand the message without reading a proclamation. Piracy might promise quick wealth, but the Crown intended its final payment to be made beneath a rope. Number 1 begins at Cape Coast Castle in 1722 with Bartholomew Roberts's captured crew, but among the era's most notorious individual endings was that of Charles Vane. After rejecting the royal pardon and returning to piracy, Vane was eventually wrecked in a hurricane, stranded, recognized, arrested, and carried to Jamaica. On March 29, 1721, he was tried at Spanish Town and convicted of piracy. Days later, he was taken to Gallows Point at Port Royal. Hemp fibers tightened beneath his weight as the short drop hanging forced the noose against the arteries and airway rather than guaranteeing an immediate broken neck. The captain, who had once escaped warships through speed, deception, and disciplined sail handling, could no longer maneuver. Vane died beneath the gallows, and his corpse was reportedly displayed at Gun Cay as a warning visible from the sea. Final, yet the brutality of these deaths extended beyond the instant each pirate stopped breathing. Blackbeard's severed head hung from Maynard's bowsprit. Kidd's tarred corpse remained suspended in an iron gibbet beside the Thames. Roberts vanished beneath the Atlantic, wrapped according to his crew's wishes. Rackham's remains became a warning near Port Royal, and Vane's body was exposed after execution. Governments understood that destroying a pirate was only half the punishment. The corpse itself became propaganda. Salt air penetrated skin, rain corroded iron cages, tides moved beneath decomposing remains, and merchant crews entering major harbors could see exactly what awaited captured pirates. The Golden Age had produced fast sloops, immense prizes, elaborate articles of agreement, and captains capable of terrifying entire shipping routes. But neither bronze cannon nor letters of Marco could defeat the machinery of execution once the final voyage reached shore.